Welcome back here at the Faculty Factory Podcast, and I'm Kim Skorupski at UTMB, University of Texas Medical Branch in sunny Galveston, Texas, looking at my new friend and colleague, Dr. Judy Tung. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Kim.
I'm so happy you're here. How did I find Judy? Through her scholarship, yes, contributing to the scientific literature in faculty development. She contributed to the group on faculty affairs, best practices, scholarship repository, read her work. She pointed me to other work. Dr. Tung is here to talk to us today about leadership. So who is Dr. Judy Tung? She is an associate professor of clinical medicine at Weill Cornell Medicine, and she's also the associate dean of faculty development in the School of Medicine. So she knows what she's talking about, and she has this great piece of scholarship that will be on the website. So go and click on it, take a look at it, but she'll tell us all about it here. Judy, thank you so much for carving time to be with us. Tell us all about enhancing a faculty development program, identifying and addressing leadership skill gaps using an established leadership framework in the Journal of Healthcare Leadership.
Thank you, Kim. Before I delve into that, let me just say how honored and excited I am to be with you today. When I actually first assumed my role as faculty development dean here at Weill Cornell in New York City, I looked for my community of faculty affairs and faculty development individuals. And your faculty factory was a great resource and a great way for me to identify the thought leaders around the country and the articles that then taught me on the job where my priorities ought to be. So it is such a thrill for me to actually be a part of this now.
You're very kind. We are a vibrant community. We all love and support each other. So thank you for being a part of it, Judy. Now you're in the club. You have to come back.
Happy to. So in my role at Weill Cornell, I lead a leadership development course for early career faculty called LAMP, the Leadership in Academic Medicine program. And I do have to give shout out to Indiana University, whose program we imported to Weill Cornell and adapted for our needs. And it's been in existence actually now as a college-wide offering since 2013. The program does run for almost a whole year, about 10 months, and we do meet once a month for an afternoon and cover a curriculum of common knowledge areas, skills, and activities to help arm our early career faculty for their own academic success, but then more importantly, for their new or aspirational roles as leaders. And that is couched in our firm belief that we are all leaders in academic medicine, whether that be in directing our patients or our learners or our folks in our work environment and our laboratory. And so those are skills that are obviously transferable not only to your own career, but then also to the individuals who you naturally work with and lead around you. So the program actually we have written up about in terms of some of our metrics that we've collected in pre-program and post-program surveys around our participants' self-awareness, their self-efficacy, some of their specific academic skills, such as presenting their work or writing manuscripts or working with a mentor, as well as some of their specific leadership skills. For example, motivating individuals, giving feedback, resolving conflicts, etc. And we actually even looked at some secondary outcomes, including whether our participants were achieving promotion in academic rank in their own career and whether we were retaining them in the institution as they were advancing. And we were fortunate back in about 2021 to have documented those two program outcomes. But then fast forward to about a year or two ago, the organization had some new strategic priorities, and notably in around constituent well-being. I think it's no surprise to all of us that since the pandemic, since a lot of constraints around the financing of academic medicine and the resources available for scientific pursuits, that clinician and scientific burnout is a national concern. And that is no different for us at Weill Cornell. So we thought a little bit about whether we were preparing our young leaders to actually influence or impact the well-being of the units in which they were working in. And so we looked to a established evidence-based framework developed by Tate Shannonfelt and his colleagues called the Leadership Impact Index or Leader Index, which provides leaders with 8 very specific behaviors or traits that if they do well on, if their constituents score them highly on, actually is associated with their constituent engagement, vitality, decreased burnout, and increased retention. So we thought to ourselves, hey, are we teaching to these 8 traits? And if we're not, can we teach to these 8 straight traits? And so that was sort of the basis for the body of work.
And can you reference those 8 traits from the Leader Index in case people are saying, well, what are the 8?
Yes, I was hoping that you would ask me. They are: holds career conversations with me, empowers me to do my job, encourages my ideas and suggestions for improvement, treats me with respect and dignity, gives me feedback and coaching on my performance, recognizes me for a job well done, informs me about change in the organization, and helps me to develop my talents and skills. So, in some ways, not rocket science, 8 skills that I'm confident everyone in their day-to-day work, or especially in their leadership roles, tries to achieve. But again, how well are we actually strategically, intentionally working on these was something that we wanted to explore within our program.
Judy, one of the things I love about your paper is in your table, you list these 8 traits from the Leadership Index, and then you have a nice column that shows the recommended behaviors from senior leaders, the areas of persistent discomfort, and the additions that you made to the LAMP, the leadership curriculum. So I love how you used an existing framework or theory and then built that into the new iteration. So for example, friends, as you're listening to Judy, holds career conversations. An area of persistent discomfort is negotiation, because we have to have negotiation skills. Similarly, we have to have this discomfort potentially in negotiation abilities with encouraging ideas and suggestions or informing about organizational change. Another area of persistent discomfort for leaders is time management, and that shows up empowering people to do the job, developing talents and skills, providing feedback, all of which is time. And then the last one is conflict management, a persistent discomfort. You show us that for leaders to have be facile in managing conflict, that comes up with treating people with respect and dignity, recognizing a job well done. So you really crosswalk. I like how you crosswalk. Well, if I am as a leader or I'm growing as a leader, I'm expected to hold conversations, empower people, encourage ideas. Where that might be difficult for me might be in this competency area. And then, well, where can I learn about this? And then you show how you've, built that and it's in your curriculum. So congrats. I love it.
Oh, thank you very much. And listen, I was humble enough to recognize that these are difficult concepts. This is again, it's intuitive, but it doesn't play out in your everyday unless you have some specific behaviors that you could practice over and over again. So what we first did was we actually went to some of the senior leaders in one of our affiliated hospitals. My co-investigator, Dr. Carol Mancuso, and her colleagues had actually interviewed about a dozen of these leaders to get very, again, specific advice about what behaviors in your decade-long experience of being a leader should you do, should you not do, lessons learned, tips and pearls, and crafted and collected all of that information and actually crafted a curriculum specific to their hospital using that information. So we went back to those transcripts, to those narratives, and looked for, again, examples and actions and behaviors that map to those traits. So that, if one is trying to improve, for example, on treating a colleague with respect and dignity, what does that look like? And those senior leaders told us, well, what that looks like is you admit your mistakes. It means that when you've done wrong by someone, you apologize. What it means is that you check your ego at the door and you ensure that everyone's idea gets acknowledged, and that everyone gets credit, in fact, more credit than the leader for anything good that comes out of that group's work. So again, a concept, respect and dignity that I know we all strive for, but then how to actually play that out is what we were seeking from those senior leaders.
Yeah, that's great. Such great insight. And I'm imagining you have some great stories that will get even greater insight into teaching content or helping people discover capacity in themselves when they feel like, well, I'm kind of like fully cooked. I am what I am. This is who I am. I've done the personality preference test. I know what my strengths are. I know what my MBTI is. What you see is what you get. This is it. You have some good stories about how people discover new things, a new space for them to grow and stretch and maybe go, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I could make a little bit of a
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think, there's the old saying that you've seen one academic medical center, you've seen one academic medical center, right? And that each organization has its own relationships and complexities and, hidden playbook that isn't apparent to new people entering the organization. And so I think a lot of what we try to do in the course is to demystify that. And I think a lot of what we do is to, again, help people challenge their assumptions around what we're doing around here. And then once again, be strategic and intentional about what they wish to change about whatever it is that they're seeing that they don't like. Kim, you mentioned earlier that we specifically targeted 3 areas of persistent discomfort. And for our listeners, I just wanted to expand upon that a little bit more. So after we identified the 8 traits that we wanted to do better teaching to, and we got the advice from our senior leaders as to specific behaviors that map to those traits, we then went back to our surveys and said, you know what? People have varying degrees of pre-program skills and comfort. And then we had already demonstrated that post-program, those gaps and areas of discomfort resolved or improved, but were there specific ones that we could still do even better on? And so what we did was we calculated the mean scores for our pre-program statements of confidence or self-efficacy, like I'm comfortable negotiating, I'm comfortable managing my time, I'm comfortable managing conflict, and then looked for the areas that people were actually least comfortable with. And I mentioned, of course, those 3 because those 3 rose to the top of the list. And then we looked at the post-program scores and said, okay, well, we know they improved, but did they improve enough? And indeed, for example, giving feedback, 25% of people were not comfortable with, but afterwards, only 1% of people were uncomfortable with. So we said, okay, we're doing okay. We're teaching them how to give feedback. That's not an area that we have to work on. But then negotiating, 67% of people were uncomfortable with, and even post-program, 24% of people were still uncomfortable with. So we said, aha, that is definitely an area that we could enhance within our curriculum. And once again, can we use some of the behaviors that we learned from our senior leaders mapped to the area within the leader index that we know if they learn well, perhaps they can improve the engagement, the vitality, and the retention of some of the people that they get to lead.
Oh, super cool. So for those of us listening to this episode who are charged with maybe in their division or their department or their school or university with developing programs, can you give us some examples of what those practice sessions look like? So for example, giving feedback. Can you think of remember any scenarios or all right, everybody go and what is the role play? What's the scenario? How does that look? And then, or also, can you think of the negotiation? Like, how do you practice? Because we've all gone and we all do these things where here's a role play, here's a vignette, here, go do that. You do it once and you come back and you debrief and you share. But how do you get that to be where it's second nature? What is the regularity of the practice, or how does that sustained about becoming a habit versus, okay, I walked out of the workshop for 4 hours, or that 1 month we did that, and I can pull it off the shelf, go and dig in the file folder and remember how I did. How do you encourage learners to like make it a part of a habit and to like do a gut check or a deep breath of, wait a minute, that's that thing, I need to do that. So what do those
Yeah.
habits look like, and how do you know that they're sustaining that?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? And I only have my participants for a year. So the question does remain, 5 years later, whether the skills that they learned, they're still implementing or is, hardwired into their way of conducting themselves. We generously use role plays and simulations. And so, for example, in the negotiation session, which I actually teach, we, of course, discuss concepts with regards to principled negotiation. We create a role play and we ask them to take on the role as either faculty member or chair and negotiate for a set of resources that we know is challenging for them to ask around. And one of the pearls that they always feel, I think, empowered to put in place is we are always better at negotiating for our staff members, our students, our learners, right? Our laboratory, than we are for ourselves. And so part of that exercise is you're not negotiating for space for you, you're negotiating for space for your team or resources for your team. And so we practice that. And then actually, as part of the program, we do ask for all the participants to advance on a body of work that they are either thinking about launching or already engaged in, a capstone project. And then we also give them some small groups and some senior mentors that coach them through that capstone project and really ask them to apply some of the skills that they learned in the program. So, for example, if one of the issues within your curriculum is that you're trying to negotiate for a program manager or for some protected time, and that's what you need in order to get your curriculum off the ground or to get it evaluated and disseminated, then how do you actually negotiate for that half an admin or for that mentor to help you with the survey data, et cetera, et cetera. So we ask them to do it in a fake scenario, and then we ask them to do it in their own real lives.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. We started here at UTMB when I came, an executive leadership series. It's a year long, once a month, well, maybe every 3 weeks or so, with our department chairs.
Mm.
We have, thanks to the leadership of Dr. KT Branch here, the Health Education Center, which is this humongous high tech, like one of the most high tech in the country, sim center with hundreds of beds in the emergency bay and a whole simulated hospital. But we have, of course, have the really cool simulation centers. And I said to the chairs, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we do faculty development in the sim center? So instead of standardized patients, we have standardized, faculty members and standardized
Wow.
department chairs. And so we're going to have like a department chair in their office, but it's in the sim center, the recording studio, and then the faculty member comes in and I want more protected time, I want this, I want that, and have them recorded and how they're running that
Yeah,
negotiation, and then they'll be recorded, so then they can see that
it's
growth
super
over.
cool.
Isn't that fun? Yeah, I want to do that with that and mentoring and coaching, mentoring role play
Yeah.
thing where they can practice doing it just like we do with patients. So I
I think
think
that would be called an OSFE instead of an OSFE.
philosophy.
Observed structural faculty exercise instead of physical
Yes.
exercise.
Okay, Judy, we got it. So you got it. Let's do it.
That's
Let's all
beautiful.
start on the.
I've not heard of that before,
Well,
so that would be
it
highly
just made
innovative and exciting.
right. That's what we do here at UTMB. We innovate, and I couldn't help but think of it as soon as when I got here and I took a tour of this facility, and I'm like, Katie, oh my gosh, there's so many cool things we could be doing when they have all this like high tech, three-dimensional, blah, blah, blah. We could be doing super cool faculty development stuff. And better way for people to practice leadership than actually doing it, but doing
Yes.
it in this kind of reality that's not virtual only. I guess it is part of it is virtual. They have virtual like avatar kind of thingies, but doing it like we've been doing Oski. I mean, to
Yep.
do it like, and so you becomes
We
rote.
all have the conversation that we plan in our head, which is different than the conversation that comes out of our mouth and is totally different than the one that we walk out of the room regretting that we should have had, right?
Boom, boom, boom.
So,
Yes.
right, deliberate practice works not only with patients, but also with each other and with our learners. And
Yes, Judy. Oh, I love it. So tell us more.
I would just love to highlight how, once again, humbled I have been by this idea of simplicity and of peeling back some of the layers of these quote unquote obvious concepts. And the one that I will share, because it seems to be actually tripping up a whole lot of the leaders, and I'm talking about division chiefs and chairs now that I get to work with, is actually keeps me informed of changes in the organization.
Nobody ever feels like the communication is adequate
Yeah.
or or
So the
the
three things
people
I've
in
learned about this simple concept is number one, how do you communicate information when the information is uncertain and changing? Right. So there is a tendency for us as leaders to be like, oh, well, that's not ready yet for dissemination, or it might change. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer. But in fact, I think people really crave real time information and they understand when something changes. And they love understanding actually why it changes, because then that helps for them to either accept a situation that is less than ideal or grapple with, the multiple perspectives that they may not have seen from their own lane that contribute to actually those decisions. So I think communicating information, even in times of uncertainty, we shy away from as leaders, and we need to push ourselves to be bold enough to embrace a little bit more. The
I think
second
it's
is,
yeah.
if you think you've communicated it enough, multiply that by 10, and then
Boom.
maybe you will have communicated it enough. Because how many of us delete our emails or didn't check our, there we have information comes at us from 20 different platforms, and you may not be in the right headspace, or you may not even be present in the platform in which it came. So verbally at faculty meetings and via emails and via newsletters and in one-on-ones, right? And in subcommittees is ultimately how information ultimately reaches people.
And again and again and again and again. And those of us who are charged with communicating who think, well, I already told them that. It was in
Yeah.
the newsletter. It was in the meeting minutes. It was at faculty senate. Yes, and do it again. And do it
Yeah.
again and do it again. And it's maddening to some of us. We're like, I told you that. But we are guilty ourselves. How many times are we, like you said, Judy, in meetings and oh, God forbid our email dings or Teams shows up and our head goes bing and pops over somewhere else and we tune something out. We think we're multitasking, magical thinking here, but we're not. And we just kind of pop out for a second and say, oh, I didn't hear that. Well, you were at the meeting. Well, you
Yeah.
weren't truly paying attention, were you? Your camera was off, you were multitasking.
Yeah.
So we're all guilty of that. And it's so frustrating to be on the supposed receiving end and not feeling like you're receiving the communication. And the flip side is though, there are a lot of decisions being made at the very, very high end that many of us in leadership, we don't even know how these
True.
decisions are made. We don't know what's happening. So I'm going to kind of like pick your brain here. How do you help some people understand that, yes, communication is important, it's vital. And there are also some things that we are not privy to and maybe shouldn't be privy to.
Yeah.
In the situations where faculty say, oh, I didn't know that person, was invited to leave. I didn't know that we were going to create this new role. I didn't know that this was being changed. There's some things, that we can't know everything. I mean, there's
Yeah.
certain things that, or we filed a complaint about so and so and nothing ever happened. You don't know. We don't know all the things that are going on behind different closed doors, and rightly so.
Right.
So, Judy, how do you balance that need to know with the need to know. I need to know with it's only those who need to know. How do you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, I think once again, it comes down to transparency, but transparency with some common sense. So I am pretty comfortable saying, so this is what I know, guys, and this is what I don't know or that I'm not privy to share. And I hope that is understandable given the sensitivities around X, Y, or Z. Right. So I think, especially people in medical centers, we're deeply curious individuals and we love to understand the context or the background or the whys
Why?
behind decisions or behind information behind change. So I think even if ultimately the answer is, I don't know, but here are the 12 considerations that are going into ultimately an answer that I hope to give you one day, but I don't know when that's going to be. People walk away at least feeling like they are a part of a process or a decision making or a communications process, right?
I like that, Judy. To me, what you're saying is the honesty, because you said it's okay to say I don't know, versus pretending like, well, I can't tell you. There are things that are beyond your level of. I think the honesty is, listen, there are things that, as you understand, it is
Yeah.
you work in healthcare. They're HIPAA. There are things. It's the same kind of things. There are certain things that it's not my place. It's not my decision, and we'll know when we need to know. But rest assured, things are happening. I am the vessel communicating to you. I'm back and forth. I want to share that. I want to be as honest and open as possible.
I
I'm
also think
listening.
it's okay to add a little editorial, a little bit of color. I mean, again, in a professional, respectful manner, but I think it's okay to say, hey guys, I have bad news for you. And I don't necessarily agree with. I wish it wasn't like this. I think that human
Mhm.
empathy or, I think people are always turned off by I'm giving you the party line or the company soundbite, and I don't know how you really feel about it as my representative, as my leader, and so I think it's okay to let a little bit of that emotion through. Again, done in a respectful, professional way.
Yeah, I think that's really important. People want to be heard. They want to be, as you said, pointed out rightly so, a part of it versus recipients of things happen without us. That they like to know that they're minimally involved in something's happening, and that I trust my leader to communicate this to me. So I think a lot of that just hinges on honesty. The trust, trust comes from knowledge and certainty of honesty of another. I'll
Yeah,
tell you what I learn when I learn it, as
yeah,
as I can. Trust me, I know I don't know either. It seems to be changing minute by minute. And I know it's frustrating. I know it's anxiety provoking. I'm with you, or I know it makes us all feel uncertain. And I will let you know as soon as I do know. Please, stay the course. We could stick with this and get this together. So I totally agree with you that one of the eight, the Shanafelt, the leader index of the informing about organizational change. As soon as I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it wants to be that one. That is like change. It's every minute, minute by minute. It's not it's a thankless job sometimes to be the one. Oh, here comes the bearer of bad news. Now what's happening? So, which is
yeah,
why I think it's important, Judy, and I'm sure you share this too, as in our leadership programs and as we think about ourselves as leaders, to balance all the life and all the things that happen to us with the celebrating the successes and
yes,
the wins and
yes,
building relationships with our team members around, hey, there's a lot of nonsense going on. Let's start with who got the paper accepted, who put a
yep,
grant in, who had a
yep.
great patient experience, who had a
Recognizes me for a job well done.
yeah, who
Yes,
stayed late? Who went home early and spent time with their kids? Who talk about good stuff? We're
yeah,
all human beings, as you said. We're just living lives and we're multi-layered like onions, and we're human beings, and to see each other and let's celebrate some good things. We're doing good work here. Good
yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what's going on there. All right, we got this. So that to me is all about the, essence of leadership is relationships with ourselves, knowing our strengths and our opportunities for improvement and having some insight into others and building those relationships. So I applaud your work.
Oh, thank you
That
so
you did
much.
the work, but you also put it into publication. That's the extra work. So good on you, Judy.
Yeah, and let me send a word of encouragement to people in the faculty development or education field that, the lift is so big to launch a program that there's often times either not enough time or not enough energy to do the program evaluation. But that is such a critical piece of both our lives as scholarly academicians, but then also, once again, coming back to negotiation to protect your program and to ensure that people know that it does good and to continue its support, right, for years to come. So documenting the effect of our program was important to us, but then moreover, to be humble and to say, okay, so we do good, but can we do better? And is there a specific direction in which we want to do better, right? Just not better overall, but better in this aspect, because we feel like leaders or faculty members need to be armed for the future. And so that is, I think, what we try to do in these series of scholarly works. And once again, I really thank you for picking it out of all of the wonderful works that are out there to talk about.
Judy Tung, thank you. You are wonderful. What a great guest on the podcast. We're going to rope you back here, as you know, to talk more about what you're doing, how you're innovating, how you are adapting to the growing opportunities with augmented intelligence and new learners and new ways of interacting and gaining some skills. So thank you. I know you've got a lot to contribute, and we're going to have you back and learn from you. Thank you, Dr. Judy Tung.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Faculty Factory podcast. We are a faculty development community sharing tools to build academic leaders in healthcare. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast? Please visit facultyfactory.org/contact and send me a message there. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Office of Faculty Affairs at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, Texas.